So we are into our second week and our second assignment for Group 9. This week we focused on leadership and strategy, goals, planning, and we took a deeper dive into Google. So we can go ahead and move on to the next slide. Um, we all equally share responsibilities for making sure that we completed the PowerPoint. I think this PowerPoint will definitely help us to think and reflect. And we can move on to the next slide and the next one and the next one.
This is mine. This is what summarizing the Google business case, which was a very interesting case, and it showed how the growth of Google, and basically in the growth of Google, I was summarizing that Google basically wants to satisfy the customer's needs and their wants. We always think about them as a profit, but they want to satisfy their needs and their wants on what they want. Of course, they won't be getting any profit unless they're investors in Google. And so that's their main focus. And how are they doing that? They're doing that by supporting innovation. And so through all of the case that I read, it seems like they want to support innovation. They want to innovate and have new technology to help mankind, basically, the global world, use the innovation, the product and service that Google create so we can live better. And so they're investing in products. They're investing in their current products, Gmail, Google Photos, etc. But they also want to invest in future products because they want to push the needle as far as they can do. They invest like artificial intelligence. So they're putting money and stuff like that because they want to be on the cutting edge of innovation. And so they're doing that, and they understand that innovation is necessary to stay viable and stay vital in this current scene or landscape in the marketplace. And so, like everyone, and I'm assuming all of y'all thinking, each of us are thinking about, just the profits of Google, and where their profits is coming from. And I'm sure they need profits because without profits, they can't provide the resources to continue on as Google. But their main focus, or the CEO, the videos I watched, that he was showing that their main focus of Google is innovation. And so they summarize, or their chief focus is innovation over profit. And that's what I did when I summarized the Google business case. I can move on to my next slide, Sable, which it asks, why has Google been so successful? And it kind of rolls into the same thing. Why has Google been so successful? When the founders of Google, Sergey Brin and Larry Page, when they started at Google, they basically, again, wanted to innovate. And they became billionaires, as we all know, on innovation. But they had one specific thing. They focused on one specific thing. And what was that focus? As we all know, how we started, as Google became a verb, they started a search engine. And so in that search engine, they wanted to make sure that they positioned the data in the web to make sure that you can search for something that you wanted quickly. And that flourished. That became very successful. That's how Google made their success. But what we have to recognize as well, during that search of their success, Google is growing and continue to grow, and they grew back then and they're growing now because of the failures of trying to get that successful search engine. And so that transition into now on how they're succeeding because they're still failing. And if you know, as we talked about last week, they're failing at acquiring other companies, acquisition of other companies. They're acquiring a lot of companies. And most of those companies that they acquire fails. But the one or two that it pops. Like YouTube, they purchased a long time ago, and we all know how popular YouTube is. So again, they're pushing forward because they want to acquire and they want to push innovation. And so innovation is the key to their success. Innovation probably will continue to be the key to Google's success. And that's their main focus to their success is innovation. I'll give it back to you, Sable.
Okay, so the next slide, we can move on to the next slide, which was what is the strategy, and Robin took on that.
Yes. I start out by defining what is strategy, and it's basically the whole set of choices a company makes collectively to position the company for success over time. And in my opinion, the average company does not have a strategy, or they do not really understand what a strategy entails. And I just think that you have to have one to be successful. And the key words, well, key definitions I've found in the word strategy, well, key words I should say, strategy is about choice. You have to be in a unique position in your business that delivers unique value to the customers you choose to serve. And these choices are long-term choices. You have to consider the big picture. So I would say it's a long-term choice. We make to distinguish ourselves from competitors, and strategy is needed and used to help a company prioritize. It aligns resources. It makes decisions simple and gets everyone on the same page in the company. And it also determines how we're going to operate the business, including determining how our product functions and its features. And I would like to move to my next slide. What is strategic management? And strategic management is the management that's needed for a company to accomplish its long-term goals and objectives and success through planning, monitoring, analysis, and assessment. And it brings value to an organization and its stakeholders. And the definition of stakeholders I chose are more than just people who are making money. It's the community, it's the employees, it's different people other than ones who are just trying to make money, like a shareholder. It's employees, it's customers, and the community, because it concerns all the interests that are included in the strategic management of the company. And that's all.
Yeah, we can move on and look at what influences a firm performance, which Ryan focused on that part.
Yeah, thank you. So the first major question was defining firm performance. And to me, that was the very basic definition of how well a firm executes when compared against internal or external standards. So depending on what arena you're in, obviously your company is going to set forth standards for you, but so is the outside market, and both of those are equally as important. And just alongside that is determining how deliverables measure up against objectives, kind of like you guys were talking about previously with setting goals. Why does performance matter? Performance measures goals versus execution. Are we actually aligning with what our company has set up for us, or what the arena has set up for us? That's kind of like a report card of how we're performing so far. And it determines if actions are beneficial, responsible, and efficient. So even though we have, everything lined up, is that even worth our time or our money, or whatever the situation may be? The last one on this slide is, do organizations exist to perform? And I thought that was kind of a really interesting question. So I put that organizations exist to deliver solutions and solve problems. So depending on your definition of perform, of course, everyone is wanting to meet those objectives. I don't think anyone goes to work or for their company saying that they're going to blindly go in whatever direction. So I think in essence, they are existing to perform, but it's all based off of, again, the strategy that we go back to of what are we here to do. So if we go to my next slide, it'll kind of continue on from there. All right, so how is performance measured? And again, the company or industry will dictate that standard. There are common metrics. I found two major ones. We have financial and non-financial. So financial, I think we're all familiar with: profits, profit margins, prices, things like that. But there's a lot of non-financial ones as well, such as quality standards, customer service, even times. So where I come from, in my organization, we kind of do both of these. We get a weekly, or actually a daily report of what's happening. Profits are all there, but for us, quality and times are actually probably arguably more important than the profits for us. So it just, again, depends on what business you're in. I'm sure that differs for all of us here in our careers and what we're doing. So to be able to apply a universal concept to that would not be fair to anybody. Are some metrics better than the other? And again, that completely just depends on the organization you are. Are we selling clothes? Are we creating medications? Are we working in a business or consulting firm? It just depends on what we're doing. Who determines which metrics matter? I said the employees, the competition, and then the end users, all three of those equally. I don't think, again, one can be above the other. We can go to my next slide here. All right, so why do businesses exist? I think pretty obviously to provide solutions to problems. Going back to the age-old supply versus demand, I have something that you want and you have something that could benefit me. I think that's why any sort of business exists, initially at least. And then with that strategy, everything starts to evolve after that. So again, they are existing to solve problems and to earn profits. Why do people engage in business? To collaborate, to innovate, and again, the supply and demand to provide and receive solutions. I think that goes hand in hand with the last point there of why do people transact? And again, to receive or provide a service, a solution or supply, that's where it all started. So we can go ahead and move on. So what does Google provide? We all know it as a technology service and information sharing. But going into the next point there, I think Google is transitioning into a solutions market. We got away from just the www.google.com into all these apps on your phone and all these products and on your house. So I think they're ultimately providing solutions to problems, but with a technology focus. And then kind of skipping to the last one. Some of this is just a little bit redundant with what we've been talking about, so I'll skip that for now. But is Google necessary? Kind of like everyone else said, we have the needs versus wants. And one could argue that there are other capabilities out there. And I'm not sure what your guys' thoughts are on that, but I would say Google, for some people is a want, but some people with business, it may be a need. That's all I have for you guys so far on these slides.
Okay, so moving on, we talked about leadership, which Maya did this portion.
So why is CEO leadership important to the performance? And I feel that the importance of CEO leadership is to provide structure to the team to avoid confusion. If there's no instruction or no objective for the employees to follow by, then of course nothing will get done, or everybody will be confused as to what their position or job role is. Also, the CEO is to motivate the employees. If there's no enthusiasm behind the work from the employees, then morale will be low and performance measures will be low as well. So of course, the next bullet was to keep morale within the company. The next question was, what are the amount of important factors? A leadership must be able to respond to changes at all times, just in case the plan does not fall through, or if basically if a plan does not fall through, or if newer technology is implemented within the company, of course the CEO should adapt to that change. They must have the ability to assign work, so they must know how to disseminate work to their team and have their teams to assign work to their employees and so forth. They must be able to manage achieving goals in a timely manner. Timely manner is a major thing. The last question, which I kind of grouped them together, how does emotional intelligence relate to a CEO leadership? Well, emotional intelligence deals with self-awareness. I put that twice. It's self-awareness, self-regulation, and relationship management, and social awareness. So with self-awareness, the CEO, or I say a manager as well, should be able to identify behaviors such as their weakness or their strengths to know how to implement a plan and disperse that plan to their group so that they can grow. social awareness is just being aware of your employees. Who do you work with? What are their social problems that they deal with, and how can you relate to your employees? Self-regulation is basically knowing how to deal with any problem at hand and not taking it personal. Basically dealing with the code of ethics. The relationship management, maintaining a relationship with your team. I know me personally, if sorry guys, I know personally if my manager or my VP did not, we have in our in my organization, we have different monthly interaction meetings so that we can get to know each other, and he actually participate with us, and it actually gives me morale to keep doing what I'm doing at work and to work harder, I guess.
Yeah, we do the
So
same.
my question to you all is, how does this relate to Google?
As far as relationship management, you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Relationship management and, well, mainly the emotional intelligence and how Google incorporate that with their CEO.
yeah. Well, as far as relationship management, I guess, say something on that. As we all know, Google is known for relationships in the company. As far as they make a lax environment for their company, because they want their employees to be, I guess, stress free, so
Yeah.
they can have the mindset to innovate, which is a good thing. And I guess, like I was saying, I was going to say before, in the military, they do that as well. They call them welfare, where every so often we all get together and we just pick something during the daytime, or during the first hour or two, we might go over some training, but then the rest of the day we might go to the movies or go whatever, just to, and that's called to build relationship and relationship management amongst the team. And so Google is known for that. And so I think that's why they probably are leading in Silicon Valley, because their employees are happy. They don't want to go anywhere.
Yes.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a correlation with kind of the less structure in the office with increased innovation. Like I said, the lax environment there has really allowed them to kind of throw out the traditional playbook and focus on innovation, which has worked in their favor so far.
Yes, definitely.
I was watching a video and I saw where the CEO was talking about how basically he'll be talking about an idea, and then an employee will just go ahead and jump on the assignment before it's even dispersed or anything. And I just really thought that, of course, he had to make his employees feel comfortable enough to start working on the assignment before it was assigned or project.
Interesting. It's very. And then what was funny about that you said that, Maya, I think the CEO was saying that the average person would think that Google employs mostly people with tech backgrounds, but he was saying most of their employees are people with history degrees, or people with different type of degrees that we wouldn't, not the normal degree, and they're doing a lot of the innovation, which was that was interesting as well. So.
Yep.
Yeah, I get the impression that they encourage the employees to think and act as entrepreneurs themselves.
Yes.
That's a good point.
Okay, I'm gonna write down my notes.
Then we want to move on to the next slide.
I got your next slide up. The next slide.
Okay, and the next slide is about entrepreneurial orientation and effectuation. So the first part is about the definition, and the second part is why is it important to strategizing or strategic management. Effectuation is basically the logic behind entrepreneurial orientation. So I'd rather talk about EO before I talk about effectuation. EO is the strategy on how to achieve entrepreneurship. So it's basically, what was the risk, the process, what did they actually do to achieve their business, their entrepreneurship. And effectuation is, what did they plan out, or the behavior of the entrepreneurial orientation. So how can I put that? What did their mind think about? What did they write down? How did they plan to tackle on the EO? The importance of effectuation is that it comes with a list of principles, which the principles are pretty general, but I'm not an entrepreneur, so I wouldn't know exactly how their mind think, but they use those principles as a clutch or a reference just in case their plan does not fall through, and how they could basically pick themselves up and plan to go in another direction. Entrepreneurial orientation is important because it provides 5 different dimensions that gives managers insight on how to better their strategies within their organization, or add on to their strategy, or just to get the goal that the firm needs. So again, how could we relate this to Google?
Well, I see you have a note with entrepreneurial oriented down there. I think Google is entrepreneurial oriented, and people might say, well, do they want companies to come and, I guess, truncate them? But they actually do want people to be entrepreneurs, and they want them to innovate, and they want them to create things outside of Google. I think it's because they just come along and buy the company up. That's why they want to do that. But they do want people to be entrepreneurs, because that pushes them and that helps them add on to their products. So they're not scared of other people being entrepreneurs. They just want to push the technology realm forward with entrepreneurs. They feel that the more entrepreneurs that's out there in the technology space or biosphere helps Google to innovate. You know, even though if they acquire the company or if they don't acquire the company, it all falls into innovation.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah, like what Robin said too, is like they treat every employee like its own entrepreneur. I thought that was really good. Yeah. But then they also don't really put limits on it. You know, it's not that, and I don't know their structure down to the specifics, but just because you're not a manager or a leader or a VP doesn't mean you can't be making those decisions and, you know, giving those presentations. I think that's really unique.
Yes, definitely. I was going to say, I definitely try to take that same theory into my work, and always trying to incorporate my staff on new ways and new ideas to do something. Everything doesn't have to work in the same process. We can find different avenues or different roles to get to the same goal. So I think that's definitely very important. We can move on to the next slide. I focused on firm performance. And Ryan, you definitely touched on performance. I just wanted to get an idea of what you guys think firm performance is. Group 9's definition of firm performance.
I think performance is those KPIs. What key performance indicator that you can measure to show where the company is so far?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think I'd say I have X, Y, Z that I want to accomplish by the quarter or the year. And then I have these here, and this is going to tell me, like I said earlier, kind of like a report card of, you know, I'm checking in and seeing, am I on track? Is this working? Is this budgeted? Is this worth our time? Or do we need to reevaluate and go a different direction?
Yeah, I agree, Amaya and Ryan. Y'all were right on point. Is those key indicators where they're measuring if they're moving forward. But I guess there has to be a balance there with their performance, because they always go back to make sure they're innovating, and they know that they're going to fail. But at the same time, I guess they have to measure their failures to make sure that they don't totally use all of their resources. And so I guess there's a balance to make sure they measure, to make sure the firm is performing to innovate. And at the same time, it is a company, and they got to make sure they're performing to create profits, because they just focus their performance on innovation. all of their resources will go toward innovation. And then, of course, they're not focusing on profit. And then some other company will come and truncate Google, and Google will be no longer, which I cannot see. But hey, that happens to other company. Just look at what's the company? What's the company? Blockbuster. At the one time they were a verb, and now they are non-existent.
Now Netflix is the verb.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, so performance indicators. There are two main performance indicators: the leading measurement or indicator, and then it's the lagging or trailing measurement. And basically, the lagging is the outputs are easy to measure, but they're not easy to improve. And the leading are harder to measure, but they are easily influenced. And you can think of this as like someone trying to lose weight, so they're counting calories. They're counting their calories, and the goal is to lose weight. That's the leading versus someone who have lost weight and then looking back. That's the lagging. Looking back on how they did lose weight. And then we can move on to the next slide. So it's two types of strategic planning. There's the triple bottom line and the balanced scorecard. The triple bottom line, I feel like, focuses more on the entrepreneur aspect. It looks at people, the planet, and profit. So it really it has a holistic approach. Basically, if you can sustain socially and you can sustain ecologically, then profit will come. Versus the balanced scorecard, it focuses on finances, customers, internal business processes, and learning and growth. This is what I think a lot of businesses, this is what I foresee, or this is what I see more businesses doing. They definitely focus more on the money. They're looking at their customer satisfaction. What does customers think about them? They focus on internal business processes. So what's working for their business, what's not working for their business. And then the leaders of the company focus on learning and growth and developing outside of that. And we can go to the next slide. So I feel like Google definitely does a triple bottom line. I know Google.org focuses on education and racial injustice. And then they look at the planet, climate change, and public health. And the profit is low operation expenses and low line performance. But like you said, I feel like this is more of an entrepreneurial approach with the triple bottom line, which I feel Google definitely have. I don't know if you guys have any input on that.
Well, I think so. And I think, when you watch the news, you're looking at political races or any of that kind of influence, I think people or the communities are wanting people to get more towards this triple bottom line when they're looking at these businesses coming in their communities or expanding rapidly, or what are they doing with their profits. I think people are starting to look at this a lot more than they are the other side.
Yeah, just in this class, the first couple of weeks, I'm gonna be honest with you. I always thought companies focus on profit. I'm learning real quick. It's their mission and their vision. They focus on people, getting the needs and wants and what they need. Basically, what they need more than what they want. I guess what they want as well. And then a lot of them are focused on the planet. Like they're trying to make sure that they do things to help the planet. And whatever way, if it's cleaning the planet up or just making sure the planet stays moving forward. But it's interesting. The class is very interesting about strategy.
Yeah, definitely. We can go to the next slide.
And I just want to say that's what I learned when I had to do my question on what is strategy, because I'm in business and I would think the main thing is to make a profit. But what I learned is that it's more about catering to who you want to sell to and what you want to sell and be a success in that way, not just making a profit.
I think it's about being proactive and reactive. You have BP who is reactive to the oil spill and what they cause versus other companies who choose to do stuff like this. And it sets a better image. And then, in turn, that increases profits and increases loyalty and retention by doing those things proactively without there being a stigma or there being a requirement to do stuff like that.
So the next slide that I focused on was goals. So why do we have goals? So I feel like goals are the overall thing that we want to achieve. When we set goals, we set the blueprint for steps that we need to achieve those goals. How do we set goals? We look at the bigger picture and map out what we need to do and the steps we need to take to get to that bigger picture. What is the process? Goals should follow the SMART motto. And why is the process so important? Goals allow growth, profit, and organization. And we can move on to the next slide where I discuss SMART goals. So SMART goals are goals set. They're specific, they're measurable, they're attainable or achievable, they're relevant, and they are timely. So specifically, they get right to the point. Measurable, they provide account for it, actual number, and then attainable, they're realistic. Relevant, they stick to the point of what your focus is, and then timely, that puts a hard stop to it so that you don't linger on with your goals. The SMART goal that I use as an example is I will acquire 5 new customers in the next 3 months. It's specific. It tells you that you will acquire. It's measurable. You have account number that you'll acquire 5 clients. It's obtainable. It's something that can be done. It's relevant for someone who is in retail. They want to acquire clients to make sales, and then it's timely. I have 3 months, putting a hard stop to it. So SMART goals are important to any industry as they create concise, clear standards for a firm to provide effective results. And that is what I had on SMART goals.
That's it.
Yep, that's it.
So I guess we'll go ahead and start preparing for next week's